Hi, for those of us that have and love our Sony RX100VII and the great 200mm zoom, we're going to see if the iPhone 17 Pro with its 8-time optical quality 200mm zoom can match the RX100VII. Is it time we ditch the RX100VII for an iPhone? Has the time come? I'm choosing to make this test with the iPhone 17 Pro because I think for most of us that are interested in photography, if you're watching this channel, the Pro has the upgraded camera, so this is the model we're going to focus on. So for those of you that are saying comparing these two is like comparing apples and oranges, I say no.
I say no.
I'm not comparing this camera to a $5,000 mirrorless camera, a real professional camera. I'm comparing it to a, well, it's pretty similar size, small, both can fit in a pocket, both around a 1-inch sensor, and now both of them have a similar zoom range. Yes, I know we're comparing a dedicated camera, a dedicated Sony camera, to still a cell phone camera, but you know what? Apple is making some pretty strong claims about the cameras that they put in their iPhones, like
Tetraprism telephoto with an improved 3D sensor shift image stabilization system for demosaicing, which constructs the image from the raw output using the quad pixels in the imaging sensors.
Now what the heck does that mean? Now initially I had the idea for this video of just comparing the zooms and how do the zooms look and cropping in, but after seeing some of the results, which I gotta give you a little semi-spoiler alert, surprised me, I started digging in deeper and looking at other image factors, real image comparisons between the two. You better buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be surprising, and it starts right now. We'll get to the zoom analysis in a second, but first let's take a look at a nice wide angle taken with the main camera, and here's the camera information so you can take a look and see. Very nice shot of the city. This is the RX100VII. Now, first thing you could notice is that the sky is a little more visible in the iPhone 17. It captures the dynamic range better. You notice there's a little more distortion though with the iPhone 17. Look at the building, it's a little more like bent, whereas it's straighter with the Sony. Now the haziness in the left right here is from a rope that just happened to pass in front of the lens for that second. Now this is a shot with the telephoto 4x camera, which is 100mm equivalent zoom. We're going to focus in on the top of this building here, this little point, as we zoom in. Now this is the same perspective with the RX100VII at 100mm. So as we compare them here side by side, they are surprisingly close. I mean, they really do look pretty close. And I'm not going to say what I think. I'm going to give you the opportunity to form your own opinions for this. Now let's crop in tight. This is the RX100VII cropped in compared to the iPhone. And this is at the 100mm level cropped in. Here they are side by side. Cropping in often reveals a lot of flaws, but again, I think the iPhone 17 is holding up great, actually. Now, in the iPhone, when you switch to the 8x camera, it's 200mm, but it drops to 12 megapixel picture because it's the fusion camera, or like a little bit of a digital crop. Here is the RX100VII at 200mm. And here is the Sony cropped in at 200mm. Let's compare that with the iPhone, and the iPhone seems to fall apart a bit here. But you know what? I may not have had the focus right, so I repeated this test. Can you tell which camera is which on this wide angle shot? You can tell by the sky. Yep, this is the iPhone. So for this test, we're going to zoom in on this statue here, this Egyptian statue. We're going to use the 8x zoom on the iPhone. That's going to be a 12 megapixel picture because it's cropping into the 4x lens. Still looks pretty nice and sharp. Let's compare it to 200mm, the full zoom on the RX100VII. Now I'm getting the feeling they're looking close again. Let's crop in. Now this is the RX100 cropped in, and this is the iPhone cropped in. Besides the color white balance difference, this test looks a lot closer than that test with the buildings that I showed you from the balcony, which I think was a misfocus issue. So side by side at 200mm, realize the iPhone 17 has a bit of a disadvantage because that's a cropped 200mm. The RX100VII is optical zoom, but they both look really good. The iPhone gives you the opportunity to shoot RAW for a 48 megapixel shot, and I'm going to show you here. This is the shot with the 100mm 4x camera with the iPhone 17 in RAW versus the RX100VII at 100mm. So let's crop in now, make this really tough, cropping in on the iPhone image at 100 millimeters versus the Sony cropped in. My gut is the Sony is a little noisier, maybe a little sharper, and the iPhone tones down the noise and maybe slightly softer. Are we having fun yet? If so, please just take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. It takes a lot of time to make these tests and these videos, so I do appreciate your support. Let's continue. So okay, let's say we determine that the Sony and the iPhone are about the same quality for their 200 millimeter zooms. But the Sony has something called clear image zoom, which supposedly gives you better quality than digital zoom. It's 2 times, which would bring the focal length to 400 millimeters effective. So let's take a look and see. This is the shot with the iPhone at 200 millimeters. Here's the shot with the Sony at 200 millimeters. Now we've just engaged clear image zoom. So let's punch in 2 times now with the iPhone to get to the same equivalent 400 millimeters. Looks pretty good. It's a little brighter, so to even things out, let's just lower the exposure a bit so it'll be easier to compare it. So let's take a look at them side by side and see how they look. iPhone on the left, the Sony RX100VII on the right. So just realize what we're doing here. The iPhone shot at 8 times is already a crop, and we just doubled it with a digital zoom. The Sony is using the clear image zoom, so this is effectively a 16 times shot with both cameras. And wow, they both look close. Kudos to the iPhone. So far, this is not what I was expecting. I was expecting the Sony to blow away the iPhone. So let us take a look at low light. Are we nervous? So let's start with a deep twilight scene of the city. We get very different renditions. You certainly can see a lot more with the iPhone. It's brighter. Also getting more saturated colors, interestingly. Now, what about 4K video? This building had a lighted pumpkin display for Halloween, so you can take a look at the colors. Now this is at full 200 millimeter zoom, and it's also kind of dark, so both cameras are going to be challenged. But the iPhone here, I think, looks softer, a little more noise, and definitely not as clean as the Sony. I think with the RX100, more defined edges, just a better picture in terms of sharpness, and I think this is the first clear victory for the Sony. Now what about outdoors? Here is an iPhone scene again. This is 4K 60 for the iPhone compared to 4K 30 on the Sony. To my eyes, I am seeing a sharper image on the Sony. Now the noise is not an issue because it's sunny out, but let's crop in and see if there really is more detail. That's one way of determining it. This is the iPhone cropped in. This is the Sony cropped in. Looks cleaner and more detailed here, which makes sense because the Sony's 4K video is actually oversampled. So I think in all the testing that we've done so far, video looks like where Sony still maintains its advantage. Took some other video around Central Park of the fall colors. Now I took it in the best possible resolution and frame rate, the iPhone in 4K 60. See the beautiful fall colors in the trees. Here it is in the Sony, definitely less saturated, but again, I'm getting the sense that it just looks a bit crisper. Here they are side by side for you to be the judge. It was a beautiful fall day in Central Park, so I had both cameras with me, and while walking, I saw an engagement shoot. Thought this would be a perfect opportunity to test the zooms again, so I'm going to show you some pictures both taken with the iPhone and with the Sony, and you can check out, most of these shots were with the zoom. So just a few more examples because I'm really surprised about how well the iPhone is performing, especially with the zooming and cropping in. Here is another raw shot of the Empire State Building compared to the Sony at 100 millimeters. Let's crop in. Here's the Sony, nice detail, but also nice detail with the iPhone 17. So what does all this mean? Before I made this video, I really didn't know what to expect, but I was suspecting that the Sony would embarrass the iPhone because, hey, we're comparing a real camera with still basically a cell phone with these small lenses. But in fact, what I actually saw was that the iPhone, not only did it hold up, produced more pleasing images in a lot of cases. Now, of course, you can always adjust color saturation in post-production, and you can, take away noise or do whatever. But a lot of us just want to take pictures and not have to futz and do editing on them. And with the iPhone, you get really nice pictures right out of the box. You get better dynamic range, Look at the skies. They're easier to see. They're more pleasing. I'm shooting JPEGs with the iPhone, and look how much better dynamic range you get. Now, I did shoot RAW also with the Sony, and this is an example of a RAW shot. Now, you can edit your RAWs, and I did it here to bring out the sky more, but of course, it darkens your whole image. The iPhone, you don't even have to do any editing on this image. I think it looks perfect. Now, later in the day, the sun is a lot lower. I was out in the park, and you can see the sun right on my face. There's a tremendous amount of glare here. The sun really shining. I look like a ghost. So naturally, this is going to be a really tough scene for any camera with all that sun low in the sky. Taking a picture right into the sun, here is how the Sony looks, and here is how the iPhone looks. And quite frankly, that's embarrassing to the Sony. Maybe part of the reason I was surprised about all this was because last year I saw a video made by Tony Northrup where he did a similar type test using the iPhone against a full-frame camera to compare the cropping and the zooming. But that was the iPhone 16. Maybe there's been a lot of improvements with the 17. That's possible. And let's not forget the RX100 is a small sensor camera, relatively speaking. It's a camera that came out 7 years prior. So, again, is this test fair for even the Sony now? I don't know. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and what do you think? Well, there you have it. Interesting, wasn't it? If you thought so, please do like and subscribe. And if you have another camera which you're interested in maybe seeing this compared to an iPhone 17 Pro, maybe another 1-inch sensor camera like the G7X Mark III or another Panasonic camera, maybe like a Leica Deluxe 8, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Hit me up in the comments, and if there's enough interest, I'll do those tests as well. Thanks so much for watching, and hey, we'll see you in the next video.